everyone, and welcome to the Plug in Play podcast, or should I say, a podcast with production values. That's right, we finally have an intro. I feel very official now. It's amazing the possibilities you can afford with a Fiverr account. But we are a video game podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We go over the news, we go over impressions, all the stuff you love to hear about, I love to talk about, because I love to hear myself talk. I'm a white man with a podcast. What can I say? There are dozens of us. There's not really dozens. There's a lot more than dozens of us. Actually, there's a very large number. But anyway, this episode, we have a lot of fun stuff in the docket. We have the shambling corpse of Game Informer resurrected from the ashes. We have, of course, my favorite as the business guy. I love delving into the business side of things. Ubisoft creating a new subsidiary housing their major IPs. This, I think, is really big. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of it. And then, of course, the Nintendo Direct. A little anticlimactic because, we have the actual Switch 2 announcement next week. But that's a big deal, obviously. Still a lot happened there. And then impressions, of course, the big ones. We got two interesting ones for you. We got the new hotness Split Fiction. That's right, I played all the way through it with a friend. I'll let you know what I think. Outscoring Monster Hunter right now on Metacritic, the highest reviewed game of the year so far. And an oldie, but some would say maybe not a goodie, Cyberpunk 2077. I replayed that game. I actually played it initially when it released a long time ago, back during the pandemic, and then replayed it 2.0 and the expansion. So if you want kind of a side-by-side impressions of what the game was like before and what I think about it now, stick around. I think that'll be a fun conversation. But before we get into that, I gotta do my housekeeping, okay? So if you're listening to this now, you know what I'd love? I'd love for you to give me a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to it. It's all over the place. Just give us a rating, maybe 5 stars. I'm just, it's a number I would consider. Maybe you can too. You can be a part of the podcast. If you want to be a part of the podcast, send in a question to pluginplaypodcast1@gmail.com. That is in the description. If you can't remember it all, I get it. It's long. But send in a question. I'll read it on the show. You can be a part of it. But anyway, before we get into it, it's been a long weekend for me. You may not be. I'm trying to keep the energy high, as always. But I just got back from a week-long bachelor party in New Orleans. NOLA, as some would say. Very, very rambunctious group of guys I was with. So, it takes a lot out of you, obviously. But so I'm running on fumes right now, but I'm doing my best to keep it going for you. But before we get into it, I wanted to talk a smidge, just a smidge. I do some things outside of video games, but it's always related to video games, okay? So I read a book. This is honestly massive character improvement for me. I'm able to read, and by read I mean listen to an audiobook. I love how people love to use that term interchangeably. I don't know. I still am on the fence of if you are stupid or if you listen to audiobooks or not, but I definitely listen to audiobooks more than I actually read. I'd love to see the data. Maybe we have studies here that prove audiobooks are for Neanderthals like myself. I don't know. I just know that people say books are for the smart peoples. But anyway, I read a book, and it's called Play Nice by Jason Schreier. So I've actually read all of Jason Schreier's books. I want to talk briefly about it, give you my thoughts and impressions behind it. So Play Nice is Jason Schreier's third book. Obviously a video game related book. Jason Schreier, obviously from a big Bloomberg reporter. He's been around for a long time. He kind of is the de facto name of video game journalism. And he pushed this book really hard when it was initially released. I have read his previous 2 books. His previous 2 books are about video game layoffs and kind of troubled development behind video games. Definitely recommend his first book, where it kind of gives you the behind-the-scenes looks at the development process of several games. Really good book, actually. I really enjoyed that one. The one about layoffs I kind of found pretty forgettable. I mean, layoffs happen in every industry. It's no different between that and video games, to be quite frank. I mean, you could write a whole book. I mean, the tech industry laid off 1,000,001 people, just at the beginning of last year and just before that. So, like, it's really a similar process that takes place. So if you're interested in layoffs in the video game industry, I suppose you can check on that. But this one, however, is more of a in-depth dive onto the history of Blizzard. The developers, obviously, of World of Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch. Obviously, a massive resume behind this powerhouse of a development studio. It's very interesting because I'm not a huge fan of most of their games. I haven't played or really super enjoyed the vast majority of them. So, like, I've really only played Overwatch a significant amount out of all their portfolio. Hearthstone, Diablo, like I dabbled in, played all of an hour's worth maybe, bounced off of, never really wanted to, either didn't really care to go back or didn't want to. Never tried World of Warcraft. That's always been one of those games that I'm like, well, I'm either going to really like World of Warcraft and it's going to ruin my life, or I'm not going to like it at all. So I can't imagine that my time is very well used in World of Warcraft is in any way. So I've just stayed away from it entirely. But this one is going through their history in terms of coming up and being a massive powerhouse. And obviously Blizzard gone through a lot of crazy stuff recently. They really could do no wrong up until about 5 years ago when, they started producing things that, didn't really meet expectations. StarCraft 2 wasn't as big of a hit as they were hoping it would be. Diablo 3 obviously was a big problem. So on and, Worldcraft, the Warcraft 3 remaster was kind of a significant failure, at least in terms of performance. They've made some issues. Overwatch 2, obviously, a big one that comes to mind. They had a massive hit, and now they've kind of been completely overtaken by Marvel rivals. But it's, what do I think about the book? Okay, the book chronicles their rise to power and the current happenings, which is what I was way more interested in. Is like, how did Blizzard fall apart? The whole Bobby Kotick thing. How did that happen? Obviously, if you weren't aware, Blizzard was kind of in the news, having some headlines of having a toxic culture. A lawsuit was brought forth against them for sexual harassment and an unhealthy place for women to work. It was all over the place. I mean, Kotaku literally wrote a headline about how people were literally they killed themselves because of essentially a woman's nude photos were shared at the company and she eventually killed herself. Big bad headlines. You don't want that to happen at your place of work. But it is what was certainly most stand out to me, and then obviously the sale to Microsoft and so on and so forth. I feel like I'm jumping around a lot here, but I've read books on companies before. Slumdog Millionaire is one that definitely stands out to me as a very good book. It's written by the CEO of Nike and kind of details the rise of Nike, which is very interesting because it's kind of this kind of Slumdog Millionaire, as it would kind of imply. He has a really tough time making the company successful in a brand like Nike that we all kind of know and some, I'm assuming, people love. I just wear shoes that are the cheapest on Amazon, but I'm sure a lot of people love Nike specifically. Everybody knows the brand, kind of, very, very well known, is something that almost didn't happen. It very much could have fallen apart in a million different ways in 100 million different times, but it didn't. And somehow, miraculously, it came to be this huge success. Blizzard, on the other hand, and that makes for a good story. Blizzard, on the other hand, is not a very interesting story because they almost immediately become successful before they even start making the games that make them successful. In the book, it goes into, Blizzard originally starts out as a port house. They are making ports of educational games and stuff for the PC. And they eventually get acquired for like $4 million before they even start working on actual games. Like they're just trying to kind of survive at the time, but so they can actually make the games they want to make. And in the process, they get bought, and like it's like they never really can do any wrong beyond there. Like you kind of at least want to see that underdog story of like, well, how did these like 5 guys in their garage come about and rise to power in this video game industry? And it's like, well, they happened to be making games during the .com boom, and that was just something people were willing to pay $1 million for no reason. And it's just like, well, they got lucky. And it's like, okay, well, did anything bad happen after that? Did they make a bad game? Nope, they never made a bad game. Everything they made was a massive success, and everybody loved it. It's like, okay. Oh, okay, so like, when does this get, like, beyond, like, just, like, they just kept doing good things? Like, there has to be conflict. Like, like, in order for this has to be a good story, there has to be conflict at some point. And eventually you get to the recent stuff where it's like, well, then they made Overwatch, and like it didn't do well, and the Overwatch League, and it didn't do well, and they made Warcraft 3, and it didn't do well, and it's like, well, but at that time they were so firmly cemented in this, like, they eventually partnered with Activision, the makers of Call of Duty and a million other things that I'm sure you've heard of, Guitar Hero, Tony Hawk, all these big games, that was run by Bobby Kotick, who, regardless of what you think about him, he's obviously I think he's kind of an a-hole. Like, he's an excellent businessman. There was this company that was essentially keeping them completely afloat. Like, like Blizzard had a really bad reputation of being like, they would take a long time to make things. It wasn't an annual release, which I don't know if that's a bad thing, but like Activision was constantly doing these 1-year iterations of things to try and make money, because that's just a better business strategy than waiting for these, quarterly report, kind of deals. Just got to keep the shareholders happy. That's kind of what you do. But like Blizzard was able to take longer and to kind of skip these cycles because they were now in partnership with this Activision brand that was constantly making money year over year and able to kind of subsidize them they could eventually put out these really big hits. So like, it never really freaking happened. Like, even when they made something bad, they always had this Activision balloon kind of lifting them, and then eventually they just get bought by Microsoft, who, let's be real, probably really wasn't specifically buying Activision Blizzard for the Blizzard half. Like, they were more so buying Activision Blizzard for the Activision half, so they could kind of have access to Call of Duty for their console / their live service, because it's one of the biggest games in the world. So like, really, Blizzard just kept, even when they failed, they really had no consequences for it. And you're like, well, Henry, what about the sexual harassment stuff? That sounds freaking crazy. Like, where's the juicy deets on that? And I was waiting for that, and I was like, okay, here we go. We're going to talk about the crazy sexual harassment stuff. And Jason Schreier, essentially, and I appreciate his direct candor on this. He's like, it really never was that bad at Blizzard. Like, was the Blizzard workplace like a bro culture where women had a harder time? And yeah, a lot of dudes hit on them because, that is what it is. And it was really complicated because like the work-life balance there was horrible. So like, pretty much the only place you could meet your spouse was in Blizzard. So like, everybody there was like married. And like, so like whenever somebody got a divorce, it was like really messy because like they were still in the company and like they had power over each other, and your typical work-life thing. Admittedly, that freaking stuff happens everywhere. Like everywhere. Blizzard, I think it's a little bit more pronounced based on what the book was saying, but like literally, like that's one of the most common places to meet your spouse is the office. Like, like that's just statistically where you're going to meet them, because that's where you're spending most of your time of your day. If you're working 8 hours a day somewhere, 40 hours a week, that's just natural. But he was basically like, yeah, like there wasn't really that much sexual harassment, and like, yeah, there were a bunch of articles about it, but like it was really overblown, and in all honesty, some of that reporting was completely fraudulent. It's like the Kotaku article that was this big, expose on like, well, like Activision Blizzard is like a horrible place to work, and Bobby Kotick knew about this stuff, and he just kind of swept it under the rug. It's like, well, that was really overblown, and like, wasn't really that big of a deal, and they eventually just settled, but like they probably could have just gotten away with not even settling and probably would have won. And it's like, oh, well, that's I didn't expect that. Like, that's a really it's a really anticlimactic way to get to this information I was hoping to get to for the vast majority of the book. So, because it's at the very end of the book, obviously. But like, all in all, like, this was not a publisher that I really am super personally invested in. It's hard for me to dispute that they are a juggernaut in the industry and have made some of the most successful games ever made. But it's really difficult for me personally to be like, yeah, like, I care. I really care about these guys. So like I was basically reading a book about how this company was just like always doing good things pretty much forever, and nothing they could do would ever really affect them, even if they did something wrong. And I'm like, this isn't a very interesting story. I don't really have much skin in this game, and like the rise and never fall of Activision is like not particularly interesting. So like, I don't know. I can't say, like, the only people I would really recommend this book to are like mother effers who really like Activision Blizzard, or specifically Blizzard. If you really like Blizzard, if you like, if you went to every BlizzCon or whatever the case is, you should read this book. You will get something out of it. You will appreciate it. Anyone else, honestly, even people like me who are like super into the industry, you can, if you've been keeping up with the industry for 10 years, you've seen a vast majority of these headlines, and you probably know the vast majority of it. It's not that interesting. It's not that interesting. So, was really hoping for some more juicy tidbits out of this one, but yeah. I'm not going to say like a stinker, but probably a pass from me. The pass from me, dog. But yeah. So that's my book review. Thanks for coming to my book podcast. But anyway, moving on to actual video games. Legitimate video games, okay? First off, we're getting into the news, ladies and gentlemen. This one's an interesting one. I say that a lot. That's like my catchphrase. But it's interesting for a couple of reasons. You kind of got to dig into this headline a little bit to really get into the juicy bits. But Game Informer, that's right, the magazine, the publication, the news website, is back. They've been brought back from the dead by Gunzilla Games, which we'll get into in a little bit. But the entire team, every single person that was on the original staff, has been brought back miraculously. So it's almost as if nothing ever happened. But they are now an online website. They announced their return, I believe, on March 21st. And on March 25th, a website was put up with, like, new reviews and new articles. And, like, it was pretty much like nothing had ever happened. It was kind of crazy, to be quite honest. Game Informer, obviously a long-stayed publication within the video game industry, very well known for being in GameStop's orbit. GameStop was actually the people who shut them down because they owned them, which, GameStop still, I mean, I don't have this on the docket, but GameStop's still doing crazy stuff. Like, their stock pumped earlier this week because they said they're pivoting to freaking cryptocurrency. Just the death rattles of a company, if I've ever heard it before. Oh yeah, we're just going to start buying crypto and investing in that, and that's how we're going to stay afloat. Wow, that instills a lot of confidence in me as an investor. You really know what you're doing. But anyway, they closed them down. They originally bought them to basically put them as the business practice or the business model. The reasoning behind that purchase was they put Game Informer on the front of every shelf, when you went to a GameStop, kind of like a candy bar at Walmart or whatever, and you'd have these big covers that would be like, the new game. Here's the new game that's coming out, and you would essentially pre-order. It would be a big advertisement for pre-orders, and that was what Game Informer was known for, was these huge expose pieces that would be on a new game. and the cover would be amazing. I mean, you can make wallpapers for days out of the dang cover art from those magazines. They were really great. Really, I mean, something to look forward to be quite honest. Very well done. But like, it was meant to be essentially a billboard for a new game, and you were supposed to see that billboard and say, "I want to pre-order that thing." And that's where GameStop made a lot of their money, was off, surefire sales. Before the game even came out, just like, we already know this is the profit we're going to make day one, because it's a pre-order. So that was the big reasoning behind GameStop owning them. Obviously, GameStop floundering a lot in recent years with the downfall of physical games. So, they shuttered them because a lot of game publications are not doing very well. A lot of game publications are shuttering. A lot of them, can't keep up in the modern day platform. Journalism is very difficult to monetize now. So it was an inevitability, I think. If I was GameStop, I would look at this and I would say that would be one of the first things I would cut to. I'm not going to say it's like crazy, but that was after 33 years. At least it's a lot less crazy than going and just being like, yeah, we're just going to be a Bitcoin bank now. But anyway, the editorial will be free and independent. So no strings attached. And this is Gunzilla Games. I think it's interesting to go into these guys. Gunzilla Games are the makers of an NFT battle royale game called Off the Grid. This is a game that cannot even be on Steam because blockchain currency is used as the only way to do transactions in it. And then they are also on the blockchain platform Guns with a Z. So this is clearly it's a game developer that prioritizes NFT and blockchain technology. Or as I would like to say, a snake oil salesman. I am actually a very big advocate of NFT technology. Blockchain, I think, is good too. I think it is. Both are a long ways off from mainstream adoption, and I think NFTs at this at this very moment, and honestly, a lot of blockchain stuff too, like cryptocurrency, is dominated by freaking con men. They are manipulating it into being nothing but garbage. And I actually think that the technology is something that can be used in a very constructive and great way. I will often say, and I will continue to say every time NFTs are brought up, this is our solution to digital ownership of games. I will get into it later. There was actually a big topic I'm going to get into in the Nintendo Direct that ties in very much to that. But NFTs are not bad. They are just bad right now. If you could own a game digitally, NFTs are the way to freaking do it. For sure. That's just literally how the technology is designed to be used. It is just right now being used by mother effers selling gosh darn monkeys, or whatever the frick those things are. I don't remember what they're called, but basically just freaking clip art. And then obviously blockchain is, everybody knows it for Bitcoin and stuff. I still think it is dominated by con men as well. You hear every day about like Hawk to a coin or whatever the frick, somebody doing a rug pull on this stuff. Do not invest in this nonsense unless it is, honestly, you can invest in like Ethereum or Bitcoin or whatever, but do not freaking invest in anything with frickin' Hawk to his name on it. If you haven't heard it from everyone else on the internet, like I will be the 15th millionth person on my podcast to say that. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. Don't put your life savings into Hawk to a coin or whatever coin Jake Paul or Logan Paul are frickin' making or whatever the frick. Don't do it. It's a dumb idea. But I would say that, I don't trust anyone in this space right now. Literally anybody. So when I see these guys who are like, oh yeah, we're NFT dudes and blockchain guys, and we want to buy Game Informer, something that is completely outside of our, industry. Like, we're a game developer, and we want to buy a magazine, and we want to give them no strings attached. They are free to do whatever they want. This is, by the way, a dying business model that everyone is struggling in right now, and was shuttered by another company because it was struggling. Like they could not justify keeping it alive because it was eating so much of their profits. What if GameStop has profits? I'm pretty sure it does, but it's funny to say that. But anyway, like this seems too good to be true for Game Informer. It seems like it, and I cannot emphasize this enough. I see this as they made a deal with the freaking devil. Like this sounds like a deal with the devil. I can't see this being something that ties in well with Gunzilla Games' business model. I can't see it being something that would be particularly profitable. I see this as like I genuinely don't know what the goal here is for Gunzilla Games, other than we are a blockchain company that probably has a bunch of venture capital money, and we are just throwing it at people, and because we can do whatever the frick we want, and that just seems like a really bad idea. Like you don't want to do that the vast majority of the time. I think that sounds like it's not very well thought out. It does not synergize with what they have, and I don't see Gunzilla Games diversifying in that. Yeah, I think this is a deal with the devil. I can't imagine how long it would last. Glad to hear that everybody got their jobs back. Apparently some were even given promotions and raises. Again, sounds too good to be true. But like, I think these motherfuckers made a deal with the devil. I can't imagine that there is not a string that will be pulled at some point, if not this going completely upside down sometime soon. Again, I don't know that. And, maybe Gunzilla Games is a very legitimate, developer who only wants the best and is like, well, we're just doing so well with this game that I've never heard of that's tied to NFT and blockchain that, we just want to do something altruistic with our money, just some good deeds. Like maybe that's what they want. Maybe Game Informer has a business strategy that I have yet to see that will turn around gaming journalism for years to come. I just can't imagine that being the case. So good luck to Game Informer. I hope that this does not seem... I'm being pessimistic. I hope I'm being pessimistic and that it turns out to be better for them than I assume. But again, this just seems a little too good to be true. Next up, this is one that I'm very interested in here. This is something that we can't say these words yet, but I called it. I think that was a prediction at the onset of the year. But before we can get into it in a second. I'm leading you on. You don't even know what I'm talking about. Ubisoft has revealed a new subsidiary containing Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Tom Clancy Rainbow Six as their premier franchises with a 25% stake by Tencent. Tencent will pay 1.16 billion euros, or around $1.25 billion US dollars, something like that. Haven't done the math yet, but I think that's around there. This is the death rattles of a company, is what I see here. So we don't have a lot of info on this yet. So we're kind of doing a lot of guesswork here. You really can't even get a lot from journalism because, we just haven't learned a lot. So I've had to go to legal analysts to try and do some research on this. Like the press releases, of course, are marred in Ubisoft corporate jargon. There is no way to decipher anything meaningful out of them, as you would expect. But essentially what's happening is Ubisoft is moving these three key franchises. Essentially, they're three biggest. So obviously we all know Assassin's Creed is like one of the biggest games in the world. Far Cry, obviously very successful. And Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six is one of the most played games currently on Steam and has been for like the past decade. Very successful game as well. Every other Ubisoft game, Prince of Persia, Rayman, Beyond Good and Evil, Skull and Bones, what's that freaking fighting game with freaking Vikings and samurais and whatever? That one. All of them. Every single other one of them. They are staying under Ubisoft proper, the old Ubisoft. And they're probably going to all die. They are being left for dead, essentially. This is the lifeboat that Ubisoft has created to save these investments and give Tencent a stake. So essentially probably what happened here, and this is something we've known for a long time, is Tencent, Chinese corporation, has been sniffing around Ubisoft. And they've been saying, hey, we want a piece of this pie, but we really don't like all this other bull crap you got going on. You got like this massive headcount that we cannot deal with, and you have like these like 3 games that really are making the vast majority of your money. Like that's really what we care about. That's what you're valuable for. Not anything else, really. We want a piece of that pie, but we don't want a piece of literally anything else. And Ubisoft, sensing the sharks in the water, the imminent death of their corporation, essentially say, okay, we'll just make another frickin' subsidiary. We'll wholly own that. Put Assassin's Creed on that, Far Cry, whatever. And then you can own a piece of that. And then we'll just let everything else die. Like that, the old company will likely file for bankruptcy and lay off the vast majority of their headcount. And I mean, that's kind of what happens in this situation. We don't see this situation typically occur in video games. Video games are still a fairly new medium in terms of business. So like Ubisoft is one of the older ones. So normally this happens with companies that have, like I was kind of saying, these crown jewel IP or crown jewel products that make the vast majority of their money, but they've bloated the rest of their business beyond recognition, and they have to kind of start a new company to kind of offload all of that while keeping these other IPs safe for other investors. And that's what they've done here. Then, the old company typically takes bankruptcy, lays off everybody, and the new company is kind of shifted to the priority per se. So that's what's going to happen. This is a pre-bankruptcy move, and will lead to a massive headcount reduction. These are the notes I've taken, and Tencent, obviously, these are the big one here. Tencent's going to have major direct power over that moving forward. We don't know. They haven't said exactly. According to legal analysts, normally this is kind of something that Tencent will have like veto power. It's already stated in their press release, Tencent will have veto power. We just don't know how much veto power they're going to have. So they'll have direct power over this, which is what Tencent has been asking for months. And finally we got it. And then this is also a way of, giving the old investors a continued investment in these new IP or in this new company as well, because obviously if you're an old investor and you're like, well, I was in here for Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, and you just kind of you just kind of threw them away. Like, that's why I'm invested in you. Like, why can't I want just a piece of that new pie? Well, it's like, well, they own 75% of it. So, you're going to continue that, but it's still not great. But yeah, this comes after Assassin's Creed Shadows has been very successful. And I think we all saw this coming. This was like Assassin's Creed had to be the next GTA. Like Assassin's Creed Shadows had to be one of the biggest game of all time in order to pull Ubisoft out of this hole that they had clearly gone into. And based on all the talks, I mean, that was obvious to me. And there was no way that was going to happen. I mean, there's just no possible way. And I think, only a few days after the release, or maybe a week after the release, of course, they announced, Assassin's Creed Shadows sold incredibly well, but not well enough to prevent us from filing for bankruptcy. Assassin's Creed Shadows surpassed 2 million units in 2 days. Very well selling game. Valhalla was their best-selling game ever. So there was just a high unlikelihood that this was going to happen, be a bad deal for them too. No matter what you had all sorts of controversy in the press and social media and stuff. People in the hardcore gaming industry citing burnout and not liking Ubisoft as much. Whatever. it was gonna sell good. Okay, that's like mother effers in the hardcore gaming community being like, Call of Duty sucks. I hate Call of Duty. I haven't played one since Modern Warfare. It's like, okay, well, the rest of the world loves it. Like, you are a minority. We are a minority. Okay, like that's we're in an echo chamber here. Assassin's Creed is easily one of the biggest games ever, IP ever. So of course it was going to sell well. But yeah, nothing was going to save them from this. Tencent finally got their piece of the pie. Not a great thing. We were talking on the last episode about the Saudi investment fund that picked up Pokemon Go. This is kind of a similar thing. A lot of people don't like China. China does some things that aren't very nice. Like, you are going to have to look at Ubisoft games now and be like, or specifically these 3 Ubisoft games, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six, and be like, I don't know. Do I want to give money to Tencent? Like, do I want to give money to a Chinese-owned corporation? 25% of my purchase is going to go to them. Like, that's, it's your call. It's your call. But it's I don't know. People are like, oh, well, they're gonna ruin these games. I really don't think that's going to happen, to be quite frank. I don't see, outside of them being like, don't recognize Taiwan as a country, or whatever, I don't see this being something that they're like, we need to put 1 billion microtransactions in this game. I don't see that happening. I think they're probably going to leave them alone. They're probably going to say, do what you do with these franchises that have been massively successful for a very long time. Continue to make them massively successful, and we'll just take a chunk of change from that and be happy with it. Like, I think that's probably what's going to happen. So I wouldn't freak out too much about that. But, like, I would say this is the death of Ubisoft, pretty much. I mean, like, this is the death without it actually dying. I can't remember what my initial prediction earlier this year was. I know I made some predictions, and like my number one prediction was we are going to see the end of Ubisoft, or we are going to see a major restructuring within Ubisoft that essentially puts them on the back foot of being like bought. And it looks like Ubisoft kind of skirted around that. They were not bought, but they essentially completely tanked their company in order to save these valuable IP, which in all honesty, I think probably is okay. Like, I think the other option is kind of the reverse, where they were going to sell off all the other IP that they don't really want, like Prince of Persia and The Division and stuff like that. Clearly stuff that they are not valuing, because they're leaving in this dying part of the company. But, like, I don't know. It's they were probably going to sell that and then just move on. With the same thing, just like if they couldn't sell an IP, they weren't going to be able to. This just seems like a lot more straightforward way of doing it. It's just like, well, yeah, just let everything else die. But it seems like we're leaving a lot of IP to die, and we're leaving a lot of teams to die as well. I mean, I think we're going to see a massive layoff here. Like, there's going to be thousands of jobs, to complete studios shut down. Like, we're going to see a big culling here at Ubisoft. I mean, it's really bad. It's really bad for them. But, if you like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, or Tom Clancy, Rainbow Six, so you should still be happy because you're still going to get those things. But, it's a massive blow to a major head in the industry, and we'll see if it shakes up a little bit more in the coming days. I think I honestly hit the high points, though. I don't expect to see any more massive news around this moving forward. But yeah, I really enjoyed delving into that. I always do, for these kind of big businessy things. So that's a fun one for me. But next up, this is a little anticlimactic. We have the Nintendo Direct. Kind of came out of nowhere, which is really unfortunate. I think this is honestly really bad timing. Like, this should have been done a while ago. I feel like nothing in here is like a big deal that needed to be held off on. I can't see anything here that was like, oh dang man, like somebody really didn't want to hold, like they didn't want to go earlier on this, like it couldn't wait, or something like that. Like, I really think this should have been something that was like a month ago or like 2 weeks ago even, should have been shown, because let's be real, April 2nd, Wednesday, which is tomorrow if you're listening to this podcast the day it comes out, which I feel horrible about. One of the biggest news stories in the freaking year is going to happen. It's the Switch 2 reveal. And I'm going to have to wait 2 frickin' weeks to talk about it because I'm bi-weekly or bi-monthly. But it's like, why are we having a direct frickin' like 5 days before that? Like that's just no one cares. Like no one cares. And I actually think there's some cool stuff in this direct, especially for like a hardcore gamer. I think there's some cool stuff here, but like Ubisoft don't. I mean, not Ubisoft. Oh my gosh, I'm still reeling from the first story, or from the last story. I don't think the gaming. I don't think anybody cares about it. Like I think we're all just sitting here on the edge of our seat. Like, will there be a new 3D Mario at the Switch 2 direct? Like, duh. Like that's what we're all thinking. So like now I have to talk about this direct with the shadow of like, well, there's also freaking a Nintendo Direct on Wednesday that is going to be a much bigger deal. Like a much, much bigger deal. So I don't even know how I genuinely am like, maybe I should do an emergency podcast for that. Like I don't know if I can wait 2 weeks. Like who's going to care in 2 weeks about the Switch 2 announcement? Like it's going to be old news by then. Everybody and their uncle's going to have talked about it. So like, I don't know. But anyway, let's get into this direct. Okay. Some fun stuff here. We open up with the Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake. This is not the first time this has been shown, not an announcement of any shape or form. The third game's HD 2D remake came out last year, hit an 85 on Metacritic. It was well received. It is an old school JRPG, and it is considered like the golden child of the Dragon Quest franchise. People in Japan love it. It was one of the best-selling games. I think it may have been the best-selling game in Japan for that year. It was very, very successful. That being said, it's very old school, very marred in grindiness and all those old school JRPG tropes that have kind of become dated by this time of now. And these are going to be even worse. These are not the ones people look back on and say, this is amazing. I do think that the HD 2D remake thing is really nice. I love the pixel art. I love the quality of life they've put into these things. It's not a lot of quality of life, but it is, a decent bit that makes these games a lot more appealing. And I don't think this is going to review as well. I think, you have that prestige behind Dragon Quest 3. I don't think Dragon Quest 1 and 2 are going to do as well, but it is cool that they are remaking them. You have that collection. Obviously, the third one ties into the first two, since it is the third, but it is not something I'm looking forward to for sure. But hey, great for people who want to go back and experience the history of one of the biggest JRPG franchises of all time. Next up is a big one for me. I was very surprised to see this. I was like, what is this? And then when I figured out what it was, I was like, no way they are showing this off in a Nintendo Direct, and that they even honestly made another one of these. No Sleep for Kaname Date, AI the Somnium Files. This is another AI the Somnium Files game, which, if you don't know, visual novel series from the guy who made 999, or another visual novel series. We talked about Raincode last episode. They're very similar. They actually are working together on a couple of games, actually. The creator of Danganronpa and 999. But they're both very what is it? What would you call the cult classics? Would be the way to say it. Very strong fan base for those games that, but very niche, very, very minor fan base. But you hear about it a lot. I love 999. Specifically love Virtue's Last Reward, which is the sequel to 999. I actually like it more. And I love AI the Somnium Files. The first game in the series is one of my favorite visual novels I've ever played. I highly recommend it, honestly. Like, it may be my favorite. Like, the twist in that game is so good. I fell in love with it and have not forgotten it ever since. Here's the thing, though. There's already been a sequel. AI the Somnium Files got a sequel, and I don't remember anything freaking about it. I played it, and it is not as good. It's not as good. I genuinely don't remember anything freaking about it, and that's why I'm looking at this game, and I'm like, I'm really surprised that they made a third one, because I just assumed the second one probably didn't do well, because a guy who already it's a niche franchise, a guy who did not like that game that much, the second one is not. I mean, like, I'm not even really looking forward to this one that much, because I was like, yeah, it's like completely forgettable. The second one was completely freaking forgettable. So like, I don't know what to expect from the third one. But it comes out July 25th. I will be keeping an eye on it. I bought the second one day one because I waited a long time to pick up AI the Somnium Files on a deep sale because I didn't know anything about it. And I really wanted to support the franchise with a day one purchase for the sequel. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to be doing this with the third one since the second one really didn't meet my expectations. But really cool to even see this series is still going. And I will be keeping an eye on it for sure. Next, Raidu remastered The Mystery of the Soulless Army. So I actually don't know anything freaking about this. Release date of June 19th. So a lot of summer games coming out here. This is essentially what it looked like to me from the footage. Ace Attorney meets Persona. And not only is it obvious, it's really more, what I really get more vibes of is Ace Attorney meets Shin Megami Tensei, which if you didn't know, Shin Megami Tensei is Persona. Persona is the spin-off series of Shin Megami Tensei. If you didn't see, like in the footage for the trailer, there are like personas, like the things that you fight in dungeons and obtain, kind of like Pokemon or whatever the case is. Those are like those are the exact same creatures, your Jack Frosts and penis chariot monsters or whatever the case is for freaking Persona. Like those are all in the footage, and you use those to help you solve mysteries, kind of like Ace Attorney. This is apparently a series that has been around, and they remastered it for your enjoyment. Seems to be updated visuals, probably some gameplay updates. In fact, I know it says here in the press release, gameplay updates. So this does not look interesting to me at all. If I haven't heard of it before, it's probably because it's not that good. So like I am going to stay away from this one. It's probably like freaking 60 hours long too, because it's a freaking visual novel from Japan that was released freaking 30 years ago or something. I don't know when the original came out. But like, yeah, I mean, cool for people who are interested in that. Definitely a niche one though, and I don't know. I'm gonna be staying away from it for sure. Next up, Shadow Labyrinth. We've seen this one a couple times before. This is the Pac-Man game that is from the Secret Level episode, the Amazon Prime original series about video games. It's like a dark take on Pac-Man. Seems to be a Metroidvania, and it is coming out July 18th. I have no idea what to think about this. I think it's a weird take on Pac-Man. I have no idea how we got here. But like the game itself actually doesn't look half bad. I don't anticipate this game doing fantastic, though. The fact that it ties into a Secret Level opening or episode is interesting. Again, we'll see. I do not have super high hopes for it, though. But, maybe it can surprise, and I think it'll probably be nice for a Metroid fan. I think people who like Metroids will probably think it's all right. Next up, this is where we kind of get into some interesting stuff. Patapon 1+2 Replay. So this is a remastered collection of Patapon 1 and 2. And the reason that this is interesting is because this is a Sony-owned IP. Patapon, if you didn't know, is an original PlayStation Portable or PSP game that came out way back in the day. And they kind of abandoned it. They made 1, 2, and 3. They just put them back up on PlayStation Network, actually. If you're subscribed to PlayStation Premium, you can get access to those. And they're rhythm games where you control little cartoony tribes guys, and you do rhythm commands to make them either like move forward or defend or attack. I played both of them. Patapon 1 and 2 briefly when they were re-released on PlayStation Network and bounced off of them real frickin' fast for a couple of reasons. One, and I kind of like rhythm games too. If you got a good rhythm game, I honestly can get into it for sure. But like rhythm mechanics didn't really jive with me. It felt like I was having to plan my rhythm like movements in advance. And I don't know, it didn't connect with me personally. And then the game is also structured in a way that it is incredibly grindy. And I mean that seriously. If you remember game design on PlayStation Portable, it was often games that were meant to be played on the go, understandably so. And you were supposed to essentially play it on the bus. So you're supposed to pull it out for like 5 minutes on your bus ride and put it back. And so, like, a Patapon level can be completed in, like, 3 to 5 minutes, and you're supposed to play it, like, freaking a lot. So, like, you're supposed to basically play it once a day or twice a day, every day. And so that's where the structure of the game comes in. Is like, you have to play a million missions back to back to back in order to make any progress, because it's just supposed to be this slow chipping away at the main game, because that's just how the games were designed. So if you're just sitting at your home and your couch playing Patapon, I mean, like, if you like grinding, I guess cool, but like I don't. So like it was immediately off-putting to me when I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to do like 15 missions that are all really similar, like back to back to back to back, in order to make any progress at all. No thanks. And I bounced real quick. But what makes this interesting is Sony owns it. So we've seen Sony kind of recently experiment with PC. Obviously, I guess it goes without saying, Sony is, primarily, they don't put other games that they own or developed on any other console, because, that's just, and it's always been seen as a disincentive to own a PlayStation 5, which is essentially Sony's business model. But like now, and I think this is smart, they're starting to put older games, sometimes older, sometimes not as old, on PC to extract a secondary revenue source from them. Obviously, you're going to sell more copies of the game if you do that, and these are probably players that were never going to buy a PlayStation 5 in the first place, so it just makes sense. I think a timed exclusive window on a console makes a lot more sense than an exclusive window on a console just forever. So Patapon is a game that I don't think anybody freaking cares about anymore. I think, if you wanted to play Patapon that bad, like, you probably bought a freaking PlayStation 5 or a PSP or whatever the case is, and you freaking tried to play it. But like, they put, their games on PC, and like recently they've put it on direct competitors such as the Switch, specifically Lego Horizons recently, and Freedom Wars. I believe these games were originally co-developed by Bandai Namco. So Bandai Namco also owns a chunk of this. They developed it, and I think they developed these new ones, the remasters as well. And so like this is Sony essentially saying, yeah, we're cool with putting some of the newer games / older ones, I guess, remakes of older ones, onto the Switch, and just kind of letting those sit and making more money off of them, because we really don't think they would be a driving force to buying a PlayStation 5. It's more so just a supplementary thing people would all kind of want if you had a console already. So there's no real reason for us to kind of gate it off, and I think that's smart. So like this is Sony experimenting more with being more of a publisher rather than just a console maker, and it's interesting to see. So we'll see how that moves forward with Sony, and how ballsy they really want to get with it. I think that the Switch 2 coming out, we'll have a little bit better idea. Honestly, we could see some Switch 2 announcements at the Switch 2 Direct that are PlayStation, like, why not God of War? The original God of War, or the new God of War, original God of War. Why not see that, on Switch 2? It can handle it. Why not Horizon? That's on PC. I bet you that the Switch 2 can handle it. We will possibly see announcements for that there as well. And it's funny that it's not coming to Xbox at all. For some reason, Sony is just like vehemently against putting anything on the console. But like, they are clearly now, they're saying, yeah, we're good with We're good with Switch and we're good with PC. We'll put those games, we'll put whatever freaking we want on those things. And I think that's interesting. They even gave it to them to debut in a direct. So very interesting to see. We're seeing the breakdown of the console war walls happening in real time. Moving on. Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar. This is apparently this is a freaking cozy chill farming game. I don't give a frick. This is essentially freaking Harvest Moon. This is another Harvest Moon. I think Story of Seasons has been around for a really long time. I do not care. I have never played a Harvest Moon game. I am not attracted to a Harvest Moon game. Like the closest I think I will ever come to playing that kind of a game is like Stardew Valley, and I've never even played it. I just have a copy of it sitting on my Steam Deck ready to go for when I decide to not want any kind of challenging gameplay or interesting story or anything like that, just to turn off my brain and not really enjoy what I'm doing, but just do it. And that's a total dig at freaking farming games. But anyway, come at me, bro. But anyway, Story of Seasons is essentially Harvest Moon. It's another Harvest Moon. And you can like freaking grow crops and freaking marry somebody and I don't know, freaking live a life socializing and ranching and stuff. Not for me at all. August 27th, 25th, if you're interested, if I said Harvest Moon and you perked up, you're already sold. You're already somebody who's likely to buy this game. Otherwise, it is what it is. Next, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. So this is the new Metroid Prime game. So I have interesting thoughts on this because, Metroid Prime obviously very well-renowned series. Obviously, Metroid Prime itself is something that a lot of people here in the West care about. Nobody in the East cares about it at all because it is a freaking more Western franchise, not necessarily an East one, which is a lot of why this series has kind of died on the vine for Nintendo. Other than Metroid Dread, which came out a couple of years ago, which was the 2D Metroidvania. This is the 3D Metroidvania, so like a almost first-person shooter-esque take on the game. I don't care about it. It is so well reviewed, so clearly loved. I didn't have a GameCube growing up, so I didn't play any of the Metroid Prime games. And I also didn't have a Wii because there was a Metroid Prime 3 on the Wii. So Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2 were on the GameCube. 3 was on the Wii. I played the remaster a couple of years ago of the first game, which came to the Switch. And I thought this game reviewed really well for a remaster. 91, I think, on Metacritic. Incredibly well reviewed. I played this game and I was like, this game is good, not great. Like it is fine. And that was me even looking at it through like a lens of like, I know this is a 20-year-old game. Like, I didn't really like it that much. It was fine. It did some things that were fun. The vibes in that game are unique. The atmosphere is very unique. You don't get that kind of a sci-fi atmosphere in a lot of games, and they did a great job with it. Shooting is fun. It's fine. Nothing crazy. Metroidvania elements are fine. Nothing crazy. And then the game is marred a lot by like backtracking. The game kind of forces you to backtrack a lot. I am not a huge fan of it. It kind of killed like the last third of the game for me. And I think a lot of people will admit to that, even people who really like the game. So like, I can't say I'm somebody who's really already like a huge, I will likely play this game. I still have a, like, if you kind of keep up with it, Nintendo Store, you can buy tickets if you're a like an annual pass or whatever, a season pass, not a season pass, like their Nintendo online thing. You can buy a $100 ticket, which gives you 2 tickets that lets you just get 2 Nintendo games for free. Since Nintendo games never go down in price, you're essentially saving $10 a game. So I have one of those. I think I can't remember. I think I got Pikmin 4 with one of my tickets, and then I have the second one, which is just kind of lying around, and you can't use them on Switch games or on Switch 2 games. So I have to find a game that I want to play that comes out before the Switch 2 to put that take it into, and I'll be putting it into Metroid Prime 4 likely. So I'll play it because I didn't hate Metroid Prime 1, it's okay. Like, it's just not great. But like, I'll play this game, sure. But like, what they showed off in this trailer is like actual freaking gameplay. They have technically shown off this game earlier, and it was not anything crazy. It did not blow anyone away, other than the fact that the game was still alive. And then, like this time they showed off gameplay, and they showed off like one of the new mechanics, which is telekinesis. And it looked, or psychosis. I don't know. Psychosis is like a mental disorder. I don't know. Psychic abilities. But like, it looked freaking boring. Like, I ain't gonna lie. Like, it's like, yo, dude, you can like open doors with your psychic abilities. It's like, look, if you're gonna be, this is like the big thing that's making this game interesting. You gotta show me some crazy bullcrap with this, man. You gotta make this seem interesting. You can't be like, you can open a door, like, and they showed it's like you like move a marble on a door from like left to right or something, or an orb, and like then the door opens. It's like, okay, I've seen that in like literally any game with 3D trigonometry like before. Like, this is like old school stuff. Like, I don't give a frick. Like, this is like, I need to see me like being able to like, I don't know, use my psychic abilities to like, I don't know, do something imaginative and crazy, like pick up enemies and like throw them with my mind or something. Like, I don't know, something insane. But like, this is like the most lukewarm, bog standard thing you can possibly show off. I guarantee you're going to move a box with it or something so you can jump up to a higher ledge. Like, this is some PS2 N64 like stuff. Like, I saw nothing interesting in this trailer. Shooting looks like more Metroid Prime. The environment looks like more Metroid Prime. Like, this is just another Metroid Prime game without anything that really seems very interesting. I've seen people defend this and be like, well, like Tears of the Kingdom, like they didn't show off half the actual cool stuff. Like, we didn't know about the fusibility. We didn't know about the underground. Like, that's like half the freaking game. And like, they still have stuff they can show at the second Nintendo Direct. It's like, yeah, they could, but like, this is really freaking underwhelming. This is really underwhelming, especially after my like lukewarm take on the original game. And then, by the way, this game didn't sell very well at all. Or the original, the remaster of Metroid Prime 1 didn't sell well at all. And that's why you haven't seen the remasters of 2 and 3. So we actually had some press come out for this not too long ago. But Dread, the 2D game that came out a couple years back, that game sold around 3 million copies. And the remaster of Metroid Prime, even though it's reviewed much higher, sold 1 million copies, just a little over 1 million. So it sold less than half of, almost a third of what the 2D Metroid game sold. And so essentially when that happened, Nintendo moved all of the resources from the remakes over to Metroid Prime 4 because they were like, yeah, this game isn't going to sell well. And not only that, but 2 doesn't reuse a lot of the assets. I've never played 2, so this is just off the reporting I read. But like 2 doesn't actually reuse any of the, or doesn't reuse many assets from 1. So like, it's like a completely new area and environment and enemies and all sorts of other stuff. So you can't just carry over a lot of those assets and make the development easier. So it would have cost a lot of money for these remasters to be made. And so they were like, well, it didn't really sell that well, and like, we're really just rather you just work on Metroid Prime 4. Just do that instead, because this is not as good. Not going to make us as much money. So, like, that's why you haven't ever gotten those, was because clearly people didn't like Metroid Prime 1 that much, even though you see these remasters getting these massive high scores in terms of reviews, and all of the Metroid Prime games actually have, even at release. But, like, I think that this remaster got a good review score because, and I am partial to thinking this, maybe it's incorrect, but I think when you're probably giving out review codes to your reviewers on your site, or if you're a review outlet and you're trying to decide what to review, you're probably going to give the code to some guy who really liked the original Metroid Prime and is already going to give this game a really good review. So like, probably, unless they totally F it up, you're going to probably just give it the freaking 9 or a 10. And that's what happened. And so it got a 91. But anyway, I can't say this really piqued my interest. I'm surprised anybody is still sitting around being like, yeah, this game looks freaking fire. Like, I think it looks like another Metroid Prime game, which I didn't really care about the first time I played it. So like, it is what it is. We'll see. I will still likely be playing it and giving impressions on the podcast. So maybe look forward to that in like a freaking 3 years or something. I don't know, whenever I get around to it. Next up, Disney Villains Cursed Cafe. I don't think it's a Halloween game, but it is a Villains Disney game where you are playing as a coffee shop barista. It seems to be some kind of a coffee shop sim where you're specifically selling coffee to Disney villains that all look like they're hipsters now. This is something that you can easily make fun of. I don't know. I feel like I'm better than that. I feel like I'm better than that. It's obviously freaking like very niche, and for a younger audience that's like hipstery. I don't know. The art looks like it's well done at least. I don't know. It's not for me. It's definitely for a specific crowd that isn't me and most gamers, I would think. So yeah, poke fun at it at your leisure. There's a lot to deal with there. Witchbrook. Another cozy game, spellcraft and witchery life sim from Chucklefish. Yeah, I don't give a frick. I am not a cozy game guy. I don't care about cozy games. So another hard pass here. If you want to be a cozy witch making spells and stuff, go for it, dude. It'll be a good time. It looks like kind of Stardew Valley-esque. The Eternal Life of Goldman. Or Goldman. It is a clearly DuckTales inspired. You are playing as an old man hopping on people's heads with like his cane or something. It actually looks like a pretty decent little 2D platformer. I'm a sucker for 2D platformers. I'm a sucker for platformers, and this one actually looked pretty solid. Like, I actually got kind of intrigued. My eyebrows perked up on this trailer. I actually kind of liked it a good bit. So like, I will be keeping my eye on this. Not much to say about it, but I am going to be checking this out probably come this holiday season. So keep an eye out for the Eternal Life of Goldman. Next, Gradius Origins, a 40th anniversary of Gradius. I actually like Gradius. I played Gradius Okay, so Gradius, if you didn't know, is like a, what would you even call it? Like a Galactica? Like, what is that game? Essentially, you're playing, it's a 2D side-scrolling shooter. It's a shmup. And it's a game that I played as a kid, actually. I had it on the Game Boy. The original Gradius I had on the Game Boy. And I loved that game. I have since gone back and played it, and it's still a solid little shmup. But it's like, I don't know. I'm not gonna buy this. Like, I'm not gonna buy it. But it's like I do have a soft spot in my heart for Gradius, and I do appreciate it. So cool that it's still around. It's still kicking. Something that I feel like I don't ever hear people talk about. So like, it's weird that like that one game my parents bought me for the Game Boy way back in the day is still around, kicking, freaking 40 years later. Jeez, crazy to think about. Next, Rift of the Necrodancer. I was an advocate for this game. It was, made obviously Crypt of the Necrodancer. Spin-off, I would say, it's a rhythm game, essentially. A rhythm game / like rhythm heaven game. And it didn't review super hot. I was expecting it to do a little bit better. An 81 on Metacritic, not bad, but like I was expecting like it to hit mid 80s. It is coming to the Switch, and it is going to incorporate Pizza Tower and Celeste DLC. So tracks, essentially, you can play with the rhythm. Obviously, Celeste is known for its soundtrack. Pizza Tower, funny enough, I just talked about it on the podcast. Not as much, but its soundtrack is actually pretty unique and pretty fun. So, like, I can see that being a thing that's cool to play within a rhythm game. Yeah, more Rift of the Necrodancer coming soon. And they said there's going to be even more from probably other big indie titles. So it's really cool to see those indie crossovers. I really appreciate the indie scene kind of not patting itself on the back, but supporting each other and kind of getting that. It almost feels like the Avengers, like that indie scene. It really loves its crossovers. A lot of games like that. So very cool to see. Next is Tamagotchi Plaza. This is like, I think like Animal Crossing kind of game. A lot of little mini games and stuff that you play with Tamagotchi. Bro, I didn't know Tamagotchi like still existed. Like I didn't know that IP like still did anything. Obviously Tamagotchi, for any 90s kids like out there, you clearly know what a Tamagotchi is. Like it is that little thing that you would leave to die in its own feces. That you held on like a keychain. Like that's what a Tamagotchi was in the day. Now they like have like high tea with each other on the Switch. It's like, I don't know, we've come a long way since dying in your own defecation. But anyway, I can't say I'm particularly interested in this. The only thing that even remotely perked me up there was that Tamagotchi is still a thing. So if you're interested in, I guess, Tamagotchi or cute cuddly games about Tamagotchi, you got your wish. Next up, they showed off more Pokemon Legends Z to A, still coming out within this year. And yeah, I mean, like I don't know, man. What do you say about this game? I really don't know. It just doesn't look very good, or it doesn't look great. But then again, here's the thing. No Pokemon game does, but I still play them like I'm like some kind of idiot. I don't know. Pokemon is one of those things, and specifically Game Freak, who makes these games, they just can't. They cannot get it together, man. Like you think one of the literally, and this is a literal, factual statement, that Pokemon is the number one highest grossing IP of any IP ever. Pokemon, the most popular, highest grossing IP ever. You can't make a game that's like actually technically polished and like seems like somebody who was not like on a shoestring budget in their mother's basement made this freaking game. Like why are these games always technically not performing well? Why does it always seem like their mechanics are 20 years behind what they should be? Like what the frick is going on here? We should have like a legit Pokemon simulator at this point that they should have built on over the past 20 years of making Pokemon games, but they haven't. They still are like, this should have been what the games kind of looked like on the freaking PS2 or, the Wii or something, like that's what I feel like we're at. But anyway, they essentially just showed off, yeah, you can freaking fight Pokemon and trainers around the city. It is what it is. Like I think the battle system looks like it's improved from the previous game, the previous like open world game, but bro, it still looks pretty garbage. Like I don't know. We'll see. I don't love the fact that this game is restricted to one city. Like that just seems like not the Pokemon fantasy of like traveling across the region or a world and like finding new Pokemon in different places and stuff. It's like, well, you can go on a rooftop and find a Pikachu. It's like, bro, I don't know. That doesn't sound as interesting. That just doesn't sound as fun. It's I don't know. Restricting it to a city it just seems like a weird choice for a Pokemon game. So we'll see how it turns out, but it'll probably sell incredibly well, and I'll probably play it for some reason. I don't know. It is what it is. Next up, Rhythm Heaven Groove. Rhythm Heaven is a series that I have played a little bit of, but I really love it from afar more so than anything. It is a rhythm game that has like basically comprised of a bunch of rhythm mini games. If you're very deep into internet culture, you have probably seen Rhythm Heaven in like a meme or something from a long time ago. It is a weird, wacky rhythm game for sure, and it kind of has been dormant for a very long time. And here we are, Rhythm Heaven coming back at you in 2026. I think a little early on this release, on this showing. They really could have held off, but. Yeah, I mean, any Rhythm Heaven game is a good Rhythm Heaven game to me. I'm actually looking forward to this because I have not had a console that could ever play a Rhythm Heaven game before. So this will be the first time I'll probably own a console in which I can actually play a Rhythm Heaven game. So very much looking forward to that, and I will be picking it up. Next. Okay, this is where we get into some interesting stuff, really interesting stuff. Nintendo didn't talk about all games on this conference or this direct. They also talked about some new features and things that they're working on for the Switch and elsewhere. The first of which is the virtual game cards that will be coming to the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. Virtual game cards are essentially Nintendo's answer to digital ownership. So for the longest time, and I still will continue to say this, physical media has had one huge advantage, or a couple of huge advantages in my personal opinion, but one huge one that everyone knows, and that's you can't share that game with anyone. I think everybody as a kid kind of knew one of the big things you could do with games is share them. You know, like you'd play a game and your buddy at the playground would be like, oh man, I wish I could play Nintendo 64 Legend of Zelda, A Link Through Time, or whatever, Ocarina of Time. Excuse, I can't believe I messed that up. You know, I wish you could play it. Again, you'd be like, dude, I have it on 64. I'll bring it to the playground tomorrow. And I'm gonna stop with that. I feel like I've gone too long. I'll bring it to the playground tomorrow, dude, and you can have it, and you can play it forever, man, or whatever, until you give it back to me. And then everybody gets to play the game, and everybody's happy. And it's very financially beneficial to your friends, and probably you get to borrow games from them too, and then everybody benefits. And you know, it's a very obvious thing that anybody can understand. You just hand over something to somebody else, and they get to play it. You can't do that with a digital game. Digital games are locked to your system and your account, and you can't hand them over to somebody and let people borrow them. And so I don't feel like digital ownership has been something people have been trying to figure out. Steam has, in a way, they have a very similar service to this on Steam in sharing games, but like this is still a half measure in my opinion. You know, like okay, so we'll get into the details, the nitty-gritty here. So you can now share games with people who are on your family plan or are physically close to you. One game at a time. You have to, if it's on a family plan, I think you can do it wherever you want. So essentially, if you're all sharing a Nintendo Family Plan account, you don't have to be in physical proximity. But the first time, if I want to share it with somebody who's outside of my family plan, I have to be in physical proximity to set up the initial connection to them for the first time. And then after that, I can share with them as much as I want. But I can share one game. If I share with them, I no longer have access to it. So if I let you borrow my Tears of the Kingdom copy, I can't play it while you're playing it for the period of time that I've given you ownership. Period of time is limited to 2 weeks. So you will get that game for 2 weeks, and then after that 2-week period is up, it comes back over to me. Magically beams back into my Steam, or not my Steam Deck, my Switch deck. And it will, then I have to relinquish ownership back to you again if you want to play it more. Which honestly, for most Nintendo games, and this is a system that really only works with Nintendo games from my understanding, you can beat them in a week, or you can beat them in 2 weeks, no problem. The only game I can see that being an issue with is like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Those games are pretty long, but like most games, like Mario and stuff, like that's like a 1 week kind of deal. It's like a 20-hour game, 30 hours if you're crazy, you know, like kind of deal. And it's like, yeah, you really probably can get your full extent of playing the game out that way. Here's the problem. Physical games, it's so much easier. Physical games, I still own it. I can sell it. I can sell a physical game. I cannot sell you my copy of Breath of the Wild. I can only let you borrow it. You have to be on the internet in order to do this. You will have to check into the internet as well to verify that you still have access to the time with the game, and you were given permission to play the game. Overall, like, you know, like this is a nice thing. It's better than nothing. Why can't we just have what I was advocating for earlier in terms of NFT purchasing of these digital games, giving a player digital ownership of the game. Like these games can still be taken off the store. I don't anticipate Nintendo doing that moving forward. But like these games can still be taken down, and you will no longer have access to them. Like that doesn't happen with physical copies. I mean, it can kind of now. Like I own a copy of Concord, but like I can't play it no matter what. Because it's completely tied to an online thing, or excuse me, online thing. So like, if we could just make it NFTs, and then I would be able to sell a copy to somebody or give it to them for free or whatever the case is, and they can keep it as long as they want because it's now digitally owned by them. Like, I don't know. This just seems like a half measure to me in terms of digital ownership. Like, I appreciate it. It is generous. Currently, though, you can still do stuff like this with Nintendo Switch. I believe that like if I went onto my friend's Switch and I put in my account information and logged in, they could then download a game from my account onto their Nintendo Switch and then play it. This is something that I've done for years with a friend on PlayStation Network. We don't do it now, but we used to do it on PlayStation 3 all the time. Is like I would just he just gave me his password and I gave him mine, and like if one of us bought a game, we would just download it to our console and you could just play it. Like basically as if it was yours. You'd get trophies and everything. But like this, you can't do that. or you can do that currently on a Nintendo Switch. So like, I don't know. It just seems like it's a more streamlined way of doing that kind of circumvents the need to do that. And more so, specifically makes it easier for families. If you have kids and you're trying to share games around, this makes digital ownership a little bit more streamlined and understandable for that kind of a demographic. I still think we need to address digital ownership in games. I'm glad Nintendo even gave us anything here. There's a lot of asterisks with this that like you still can't do with physical games or what I would consider like an NFT ownership of it, digital ownership. But like it is a nice step in the right direction. That will placate some people. I am still like a big, like, we need ownership of our digital media. And I'm still a big advocate of physical games in general. So that's me, though. So, I do appreciate this in general, though. It's just not, it's a half measure to me. It's a half measure that we really still need to, as a video game whole, as an industry, we need to take a strong look at and try to figure out a way forward here. But it's just, nobody's ever going to want to frickin' do that because it's, it doesn't benefit them. It doesn't benefit them if you can sell your game and you get 100% of the profit and nobody's incentivized to buy another copy. It doesn't help anybody but us and not the corporations. So, of course, we're never going to get around to that. But, one can dream, and I'm using my platform to advocate. So, it is what it is. Next up, Saga Frontier 2 Remastered. Saga Frontier is a series I've never touched. Never touched it, not really interested in it. It is a well-known franchise, though, and it is remastered with not only brand new graphics, but new events, new expanding events for the story, which is something you don't see very much. I'd assume like maybe some character-centered things or new side missions that expand upon the world. That's really cool. And I think if you liked the original Saga Frontier 2, you're going to I think you should definitely check this out. It looks really cool. I probably won't, though, because I don't need another JRPG to add to the list. Next is Monument Valley 1 and 2 Collection and 3. Separate, not the same thing. It's a different thing, but 1 and 2. Monument Valley, the puzzle game that everybody knows is that game they played on their phone a long time ago. I believe the developer was snatched up by Netflix. And that's why you've probably never heard of Monument Valley 3, was because it was a Netflix exclusive game, which, I don't think anybody played or cared about, but that's why they're putting it on the Switch. You can now play Monument Valley 1 and 2 whenever you want on the Switch, or as of April 15th. so a couple weeks. You can play it whenever you want. Go back, relive your Monument Valley days, glory days, and then Monument Valley 3 is also coming later this summer. Again, I don't think anybody cared, though. So that's cool, I suppose. Next is Everybody Golf Hot Shots. So this is kind of tying into Patapon. This is another game from Bandai Namco that's also owned. It's a first-party Sony IP. It's kind of gone around all over the place. It is a arcadey golf game. I'm not particularly into any sports game, really, unless it's arcadey. And Hot Shots Golf is not arcadey enough for me. It is definitely cartoony. It's very arcadey, but I need some freaking crazy bullcrap happening in my games, like, to make it arcadey enough. Like, I don't want to play a racing game, but I'll play a kart racer where I'm like throwing fireballs at people. Like that's the level of like arcadey I need for it to be arcadey enough. Like I don't think everybody golf ever really met that standard for me. But I know it's a game series that people like, but it is another Sony IP that's coming over. We already talked about that a little bit. I'm trying to wrap this direct up for the most part. So if you can't tell, it's still very interesting to see two coming out at the same time. And Sony's letting them have it. So good for them. Next, Marvel or Cosmic Invasion. This is a side-scrolling beat-em-up game that is, like a Marvel throwback. So I definitely remember as a kid, like the Marvel side-scrolling beat-em-up games and like the X-Men side-scrolling beat-em-up game. Like those games are definitely a deep-seated childhood memory for me. This is them making a new one, essentially, trying to cash in on that nostalgia. This is from the same team who made Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. I played that game, and it is a good game. It is very much rooted in nostalgia. I played it once, and I kind of was like, I get it. Like, this is fun. I don't really see the need in going back and playing again. I have some friends who really like the game, and I understand why people would. It, again, is like very heavily rooted in nostalgia. Like I never played or I never watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a kid. I didn't have cable, so like I couldn't. But like even I was like getting the nostalgia from that. But like in this instance, we have it's a 4-player beat 'em up. And it looks very similar to those old school designs for those games. I think it'll be another good one. I probably would get more out of this one than I would the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one. So like when this inevitably becomes free, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one did, I'll definitely be giving it a try. Next up is one that I saw people like getting excited for, but I was like, what the frick are we talking about here? Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream, is the new Nintendo game that they showed off here. It has been 10 years since the last Tomodachi Life game that came out on, I believe, the Nintendo 3DS, I think. Maybe the Nintendo DS. I can't remember, because I don't even remember Tomodachi Life, to be quite frank. Tomodachi Life is a Mii game. The avatars you create on your Wii, a Mii game that was originally like the first Tomodachi Life was essentially just a collection of like mini games and like Wii or Mii interactions that like you would really only play like once a day or something just to see how things worked. Like you would you couldn't even play it at night because like it was time specific. Like real time would pass and events would happen in Tomodachi Life. So like you couldn't just like continuously play it, and at nighttime all your Tomodachi Life people, your Miis would go to sleep, and so like nothing would happen. like I had to do research on this game, and I like that's what I found out. I was like, why does anybody give a frick about this game? And like I went and checked Metacritic for it. It's like a 71. It's like, why are we acting like we care about Tomodachi Life? Like nobody cared about it. I had never heard about it. And then when I look at the reviews, it said a 71 on Metacritic. It's like no one even liked it when it originally came out. So like, what are we doing freaking out here? Like, oh, a new Nintendo game. It's like, shut the frick up. I don't even see this game being good. Like, it's probably going to be fine. But like, I think the Mii games do very well. I think Miitopia did very, very well. They even remade it and put it on the Switch. It was a 3DS game. where you played as all your Miis in like an RPG. But like I think it's very appealing to children, and like it is what it is. I don't foresee myself ever playing this game. Coming in 2026. New Tomodachi Life for those who are interested, which apparently some people frickin' were. Next, and finally, they wrapped up the show with Nintendo Today. Because, Nintendo has to do something that's really weird and, like, I don't know, like, not, like, why do you even need to do this, Nintendo? It just makes things more difficult on everybody, like, kind of thing. Nintendo Today is an app that you can download to your smartphone right now. It is out right now. And you can see Nintendo's posts on everything and anything daily. It also acts as a calendar. For those of you who wanted an app that was a calendar, not that your phone already freaking has one already, but like, it is what it is. It's essentially a Twitter feed. It is legit that. It is Nintendo made a gosh darn Twitter feed in an app. They're like, you know what? We're really sick of having to use Twitter or Blue Sky or Facebook or whatever the frick to post to people. Let's just put it on our own freaking app to make things that much like more complicated. Like why not? I don't understand the move for this. I see no reason to do this. It seems like you literally have to pay people to make this freaking app and support it. So like, why not just let them do that for your freaking social media? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. This just seems like a very out of touch Nintendo move that, like, I don't know. They're like, oh, we can probably do something really fun and creative with our own app. It's like, I can't see that ever being the case here. It just looks like a freaking Twitter feed. It's a gosh darn Twitter feed that you have to download a separate app for and monitor on a separate app. Like, but they've already started posting stuff on it that was like exclusive news. I think they posted like the Zelda game, the Zelda movies are in production, and they're going to make a trilogy. Like that's already something they've posted on there. So they're trying to keep it, like, oh, you can get the latest access news. Like, guess what will happen? Less than 5 minutes after you post that on Nintendo Today, somebody else is going to repost it on freaking Twitter, and it's going to go viral on freaking Twitter. Like, duh. So, I don't know. This just seemed ridiculous. It seemed like a waste of time. But anyway, this Nintendo Direct as a whole is an interesting one. They talked about some stuff. It almost seemed like this is all the stuff we feel like we have to talk about, but like we don't want to talk about in the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. I feel like it should have been spaced out better. There were some announcements here that piqued my interest for sure. The new Rhythm Heaven game, absolutely. A little let down by the Metroid Prime reveal, but who knows? We could see more of that at the Nintendo Switch reveal, 2 reveal. So, like, I don't know. Nintendo Today is stupid. Switch sharing, games sharing, virtual games, whatever you want to call it. They call it virtual games. Is, like, nice, but, like, not anywhere near as much as I would have wanted to see from something like this. I don't know. This Direct is all right. It's like a solid B for me, maybe B-. I think I'm going to be wowed by the Direct Wednesday. It's going to be something to really look forward to. It'll be at 6 a.m. for me. But like, I don't know if I'm going to watch it live. I probably won't. It doesn't matter as much to me to see it live if I have to get up at 6 a.m. Especially if like it's only going to be probably like an hour, and then I don't know, gonna have to freaking just sit around for an hour sleepy waiting for work. I don't know, but it's like, I think we're gonna see the big stuff then, and I think it's gonna be really interesting. Still debating on how to tackle that. I'll probably just wait for the next episode to talk about it, but just I don't know. Feels like it's gonna be passé at that point. The internet moves too fast for my slow podcast brain. So anyway, that was the Nintendo Direct. But enough with the news. Let's move on to impressions, shall we? We have 2 good ones for you this evening. Or this podcast, this episode, however we want to phrase that. Anyway, first off is the new hotness. It's really kind of part of the new hotness. It's Split Fiction. Split Fiction, ladies and gentlemen. It Takes Two, from the makers of It Takes Two. and Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, A Way Out. They've made a lot of very well received games, but It Takes Two was a phenomenon in and of itself. I believe that game ended up selling around 14 million copies last I saw. That was fairly recent. I think that EA said that, and it was my game of the year for that year. And in fact, not just my game of the year, it was a lot of people's game of the year. If you go back, there are some archives that kind of detail how many Game of the Year awards certain games got to kind of determine what the consensus was. It Takes Two was by far the highest number for that year. Everybody loved it. And here we are with Split Fiction, which is basically just It Takes Two 2. So this one follows Zoe and Mio, who are two writers who sign up for this experimental company thing that's supposed to bring their ideas to life that they've written. And they eventually, they accidentally get put into the same world, the same experiment, and they have to do crossovers with each other in a way. And in order to get out of their experiment or their ideas, they have in the experiment, they have to find glitches within it. So they're kind of hopping back and forth between Zoe is a fantasy writer and Mio is a sci-fi writer. So they you hop back and forth between these interesting ideas that the two have written in the past, which is ultimately just kind of a goofy, kind of setup and video gamey setup for just doing cool stuff. Nothing you see here is like particularly original or not interesting. It's very interesting, but it's more so just like a grab bag of like cool frickin' ideas that you've probably seen in fantasy or sci-fi before. Whether it be fighting frickin' through a cyberpunk motorcycle Tron-esque fantasy, or riding dragons and that not sci-fi fantasy but just a regular fantasy. Like you get kind of this cream of the crop in terms of just cool ideas between the two genres. And obviously, there is kind of a disparity between, or a difference in terms of tone between sci-fi and fantasy, while both being fiction that are both, kind of also have some crossovers in an interesting way. It's a fun idea, right? It's a fun idea. Zoe and Mio are both, opposites, and they have to get along. And throughout the story, you'll learn more about them and why they write the way they do and why they're drawn to the genres that they were drawn to. And, they both have arcs that are somewhat, predictable, like incredibly predictable, I would say. But I would say it's an improvement to that of It Takes Two, which is a story about a divorcee couple who are basically just trying to decide whether they want to get a divorce or not for the sake of their daughter. And the game just kind of ends. Like there is no real satisfying conclusion to that arc. It just kind of is the end of the game. In this situation, I feel like this game does lead up to a more satisfying conclusion for both characters and a more satisfying conclusion mechanically for the game, and I'll get into that in a bit. But this game is very similar to It Takes Two mechanically and gameplay-wise, and I think it's a really cool formula that I understand why a lot of people don't do it, but it essentially is constantly throwing new ideas at the player and different things, different scenes, different weapons and gadgets to kind of tinker and toy around with. You are always doing something new. You are always evolving in what you're doing. It's always fresh. It's always interesting. And I mean, the loop is typically you are introduced to a new world. So you kind of flip-flop between sci-fi and fantasy. So you go into a fantasy world, and you're introduced to a set of powers, and those powers are individual for both players. And you have to use them in tandem in order to circumvent, obstacles that you come across. And those powers then will evolve over the course of maybe 2 or 3 iterations, the magic number 3 in every video game. And then by the time you get to the end, you're kind of put up against this really interesting set piece or boss using these things that you've accumulated throughout the level. And it's all very satisfying. It's all incredibly cool. This is all co-op. I think that's a very big element of the game that I definitely need to emphasize. It is split screen. It is incredibly generous. So I bought the game, and I had a friend who played with me. You cannot play this game single player. You have to have a friend, either local or online. And my friend did not buy a copy of the game. This was a $50 game, so it wasn't even full price. And anybody can use Friend Pass, which is the system that the game has for allowing friends to play alongside you if they don't own the game. So all you do is you download the Friend Pass version of the game, and then your friend invites you that owns the game, and you can do that as many times as you want. So I assumed it was like, oh, just one person. I can only give a Friend Pass to one person. It sounds like a single-use thing. It's like, no, like I could technically play this with every single one of my friends on my friends list. As long as I own a copy of the game, it's totally doable. So like I played it with my friend all the way through, and I intend on playing it with another friend as well, and my wife. And like, I think it genuinely has that much replayability. You can definitely play it twice because the powers you get with each character are so different. I mean, just experiencing and having fun with those powers, because I think all of them are fun, is totally worth doing and seeing. Whether you're like riding dragons and like they evolve to spit acid and break diamonds, or like having a gravity like defying katana paired with like a telekinesis whip. Like it's always something cool. It always is like, it's way more interesting than I think It Takes Two was. It Takes Two was kind of like the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids vibe, of like you get shrunk down real small and you have to like party with the bees and the ants and the stuff in order to survive this harsh wilderness of being small. But like in this, it's like, while that's certainly an interesting thing, it's not as interesting for an entire game, right? Like this is when clearly this is a game made for people with ADD who like cannot focus on one thing at a time, or who cannot focus on one thing for a very long time. This game constantly throws new and fun stuff at you that's so different and so interesting. While like It Takes Two was like, well, while it definitely still did that, I think it was all still within a certain theme. And like Split Fiction is so much better about like keeping things climactic and interesting and far-fetched as you go. Which like as you go, side stories are something that are a massive part of this game, because they're honestly some of the coolest parts of the game. Side stories are even more off to the side kind of thing. They're like side missions that you pick up. They're normally pretty easy to see and find. And you go into an area and it's a completely new set of mechanics that's completely divorced from everything else, and a completely new story. And it's always interesting or fun. Some of them are actually quite funny. Like one of the first ones that we came across was we were turned into pigs, and one of the pigs is a spring pig. Like he turns into a spring that can then extend and like get up to higher places, and one of them is a farting pig that farts rainbows and can like jump extended like horizontally extended distances. So obviously you can see how that could probably go in tandem with each other, but like at the end of it, close your eyes for a second, or your ears for a second if you don't want to be spoiled, but I think it's funny. It's not anything serious. It's like you eventually get turned into hot dogs and you have to put ketchup and mustard on yourself and grill yourself to then be put into a bun and be eaten. And like most of the side stories are kind of along that vein of like I said, very different than what you're doing in the main game, and also completely like goofy and fun in some weird way, or there's just some more cool stuff, to be quite honest. But like it just goes to show that every little bit of this game is something really cool. This game also incorporates a lot of fun Easter eggs and references. Like you wouldn't expect that from this kind of a game, but like there's like a Metal Gear reference, and like some of the trophies are references to things. Like Jaws was like another one that I can think of the top of my head. It's trying to be fun all the time, and like that is so incredibly refreshing and admirable. And I don't think a lot of games do that because it's so difficult. I mean, to develop these things that honestly could be full games, let's be real, and then also like the assets you have to do to, like that's just, it's unrealistic to put so much detail and variety in a game because it costs so much more. And I'm not saying this game is like super massive. It took us like 10 to 11 hours, something like that, to beat. It's not huge, but like that's still like 5 sessions that I had with my friend, like playing through this game, having a good time, and I never felt like it overstayed its welcome. It was an already decreased price of the game, and then one of us didn't even have to pay for it. So like one person could probably even like just, a group of people could probably just go Dutch on it, somebody pays 25, and like this game is an amazing bargain. Like it's so crazy to me to even think that EA is the publisher behind this, because I'm so surprised EA even gave them the ability to do any of this. Everything builds mechanically, everything is interesting and engaging. This game was, coming off of the success of It Takes Two, which was it was a Game of the Year contender. It was the Game of the Year, objectively, and this game surpasses it in every way. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. I think this is an easy recommend. I think this is a possible Game of the Year contender. We still have a lot of really strong things to come, but like I can't imagine. I can't imagine other games being better than this, but like this game outscored Monster Hunter. That's crazy. That's insane that this game outscored Monster Hunter. I think the one thing that I think a lot of people would be interested in here is like, is this a girlfriend game? The infamous girlfriend game. A game that a girlfriend or a person who is not a gamer could also play alongside a gamer. This game, a lot of people have been like, this game is harder. I think it is slightly harder. I think it is, a little bit. Just a tad, but not like something crazy. It's like, my wife, who doesn't play video games at all, like she struggles with like anything with 2 sticks. One where you move and one where you move the camera. But like, and I understand that as gamers, we've been raised on stuff with controls like that. So like we've gotten used to it as children and just kind of freaking, evolved from there. She obviously never did that. So like it's a lot harder for somebody to get used to that and expect them to jump in. I mean, whenever a control scheme gets switched on me, that's not a traditional control scheme in a game. It's like, it's hard for me to catch up, to be quite freaking frank, like it takes a second. If not, like, it's frustrating for me throughout, but like she still was able to get through It Takes Two. And I think she did it fairly well, to be quite frank. I think she likes to say that it was horrible, it was a horrible train wreck for her, but like, I think it was completely fine. I think she did, about as well as I would have expected. But I think this is definitely a harder game, but only by a slight margin. But if my wife can get through it, I think that if you give whoever you're playing with patience and time and don't get frustrated, if you're like, dude, this stupid bitch, she can't freaking play video games, I don't want to play with her, then like, yeah, maybe you should hold off. Like, maybe. But like, in this instance, I think if my wife can do it, your girlfriend can do it too. But yeah, this game definitely did kind of notch up the complexity of some mechanics a little bit more. Some areas are probably a little bit harder than I would say the original was. But I still think this game is amazing. So glad I played it. And I really can't wait to see what Joseph Fares does next. Like, that guy's insane, but like, he's a madman, but he's a genius madman. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Split Fiction. There's not a whole lot to delve into with Split Fiction there. It's just a really good game. But anyway, moving on. Next up is, I think, the more interesting one. It's not the new hotness, but it is a very interesting topic of conversation, and that's Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Not only did I play, Phantom Liberty is the expansion. So CD Projekt Red, obviously the creators of Cyberpunk 2077, or the developers of it, the IP has been around for a while. They didn't create the IP, similar to The Witcher. The Witcher is based on a series of novels. They made The Witcher 1, 2, and 3. I played The Witcher 3, loved it. It's one of my favorite games ever, actually. And I played Cyberpunk back in 2021 when it initially released. I actually had it pre-ordered, so I'm part of the problem. But I thought that I was not going to get burned because I was like, oh, well, The Witcher is one of my favorite games of all time. There's no way that this could be a problem, right? Well, as anyone who probably follows the video game industry we now know Cyberpunk, when it initially released, was a mess. An absolute disaster, even. On previous consoles, this game was released on both PlayStation 4 and 5, so previous generations and current ones. And it could pretty much not run on the previous version of consoles. It was known for being incredibly buggy, looking incredibly bad, being, like an absolute mess, crashing a ton. It was a travesty. It was a disaster. And it eventually resulted in CD Projekt Red being sued for false advertising. And they lost that case. So they were, they were prosecuted for falsely advertising this game. And I think it's pretty much objectively so. They absolutely freaking lied about it, and built up expectations and said things were going to be there and overhyped this game to a point where, it kind of, I do think that it also had like a No Man's Sky way of like being interpreted as well. Like people kind of put their hopes and dreams into this game thinking it was going to be like the ultimate video game ever. And then it wasn't. On top of that, it was removed from the PlayStation Store. It was the first game ever to be removed from the PlayStation Store, and Sony offered refunds to anybody who asked. That's the first time that ever happened. That's crazy. Like, it's insane to go back and think about how bad this game initially released was. Here's the fun thing, though. When I played it, I didn't hate it. I played it on PlayStation 5. And on PlayStation 5, and probably PC as well, I believe also PC, it didn't have as many problems. But on PlayStation 5, this game was fine. Like, it was okay. Like, it wasn't like freaking what you see. Like, if you go online right now and you search Cyberpunk controversy or some release date, footage for the game, most footage that you're going to see, I guarantee, cannot confirm, but guarantee it was from a PlayStation 4. It was from a previous gen console, because it was nothing like what I experienced on the PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 5 actually seemed like it held together. Like, it was held together by freaking glue and spit, but like it, and sticks and twigs, but like it at least held together. Like, did the game crash on me 5 times? Yeah, sure. Like, was there horrible glitches in it? Yeah, like where are there texture issues? Oh, for sure. Like, but what you see on PlayStation 4 is like alpha level footage of a game. It's like this game wasn't even done. Like, it looks real freaking bad. But like PlayStation 5, it was just okay. And like, that's kind of what I walked away from Cyberpunk feeling, is like, like this game's okay. Like, I don't really love it. I don't really hate it. Like, there's a lot of technical issues that are definitely holding it back, and it could be better. And they'll probably patch a lot of it, and like maybe I'll come back and check it out when it's better, if there's ever a reason. And I assumed there probably was never going to be, but like Phantom Liberty came out, the expansion, which CD Projekt Red is known for having really good expansions. The Witcher expansions are known to be very good, but like it came out and people were like, "Oh no, this game is amazing!" Like it came out alongside the 2.0 and final update for this game, which improved a lot of things, skill trees, shooting, driving, like a lot of complaints that people had around the original game. It tried to address, and like they've been trying to address those for years, to be quite honest. So like, you know, and I would take a quick side note, but like CD Projekt Red has always been known for having really bad releases. This was like one of the first ones that was really high profile, because The Witcher 3 was the first game that really people paid attention to that CD Projekt Red made. So if you go back and look, they've obviously made Witcher 1, 2, and 3. Witcher 1 was so bad that they went back and made an enhanced edition. And that's like the edition people know now as the one to play, because the original one was so bad. Witcher 2 also released with a lot of problems. And you're like, well, The Witcher 3, it must have been really good. There's no way that was effed up. Bro, I got freaking news for you. Like, The Witcher 3 even launched to like a lot of technical issues that were patched later on. And the reason everybody really kind of forgets that is because nobody played the game initially. Like, Witcher 3 blew up on word of mouth, and like a lot of people liked it. It was clearly a much bigger step up from like Witcher 1 and 2, but like all of CD Projekt Red's games have been like pretty bad at release, like some of which like they had to go back and completely work from the ground up. Witcher 1. So like this is not something new. And I would say that even though they've probably got more, you know, footing underneath them since then, I would still say freaking look at CD Projekt Red's like Witcher 4. I would hold off on that at release. Like they effed you. Like they absolutely effed you with this release, okay? Like they lied to you. Definitively, in a court of law, proven guilty, they lied to you about how Cyberpunk was going to be and what it was. And I mean, like they still made buttloads of money off of it, you know? So like it sold so well early on. And I think a majority of players probably got burned, because I think a majority of players played it on the PlayStation 4 because at the time nobody had a PlayStation 5 because it was so difficult to get one during the pandemic. Because, yeah, this game came out during the pandemic, if you don't remember. That was 2021. It's still the pandemic. But anyway, yeah, I'd keep a freaking eyebrow raised about anything that CD Projekt Red does for like a solid 6 to 8 months. You know, like I would say it most likely whatever they produce next will be somehow very, very buggy at release. But anyways, moving on. I went back and played it again. Because I was like, I don't remember freaking anything that happened in Cyberpunk. I cannot remember who the characters are. I hardly remember most of the story. And the game gives you the option. Well, you can either play the release, you can play the expansion from the very, like, we'll give you a character leveled up. You can just go off and have fun with it and play the expansion itself and, have a good time. Or you can start a new save file and then work your way up to the expansion, and about like 2/3, maybe a little bit more, honestly, through the campaign, you'll get access to it and you can play it then. And I was like, I really want to see the improvements that they've made to this 2.0 patch and see if it's really like a better game now. So I was like, I'll play from the beginning, and I'll just mainline the story. I won't do any side content. And I'll just get to the end and call it good. And that's more or less what I did. I still did a little bit of side content. And when I say a little, I mean a little. I did the character missions, so the things that would eventually lead you to getting an alternate ending. Like I did all those missions. And then I did like 1 or 2 side missions here or there. It was very, very rarely though. I'm not even going to comment if the side missions were any good, because I vividly remember doing a lot of the game when it first came out, and I remember walking away from the game hating a lot of the side content, because a lot of it is like freaking not police chases, but like police mini missions that you do for the police and stuff like that. And I ended up not liking a lot of it. And like some of the cyber psychos were like completely glitched out and like weren't very well done or very fun at all. So like it was like, I don't know. I don't remember the side content being very good. I've heard some people say like, oh, well, no, some of the gigs and some of the side missions are actually like some of the best missions in the game. And it's like, okay, well, you got to frickin' find them, and there's a lot of them. So like, I don't know which ones you're talking about, but like, I don't remember pretty much any of them from the original game. So like, I just did the main stuff. But like, to recap, Cyberpunk follows V, a mercenary who gets in a little too much over his head, and he gets a virus in his cyberpunk world that puts an old rock star terrorist in his head. You know, the classic rock star terrorist vibe, known as Johnny Silverhand, or in this case, Keanu Reeves, played by Keanu Reeves, that is slowly taking over his brain, and he has to go on an adventure in the cyberpunk world to find, in the seedy cyberpunk world, it is very R-rated, for sure, to essentially get his mind and body back and save his life. I have to say that going through this story again, I liked it more. I liked it more than I remember, but like this game is still okay. Like, I'll say that this game went from bad to good in my opinion. Like like nothing, or excuse me, I'll take that back. This game went from okay to good in my opinion. I think what made Cyberpunk good at release is still here. Like, if you were going to like Cyberpunk then, you're going to like Cyberpunk now. It's the technical trappings and the gameplay that really got messed up here, or that was really like the problem. But like the story and characters and stuff obviously weren't touched. And that's what you're going to be interacting with and dealing with the most in this game. And like, I enjoyed that more. And I think a lot of it had to do with I was a lot more immersed because I wasn't seeing somebody T-pose as I walked through the freaking, the streets. And, like the skill trees was a little bit more, like rewarding, which has been completely revamped. The skill trees didn't even make frickin' sense. They weren't even fun to engage with in the first round, like before it was patched. Now it actually is like you can become a god pretty freaking quick and do some really interesting, unique stuff through the skill trees. But like I think this game is still good at its core. Like I think the core elements of what made the game good are still good. But like now it's just been tweaked and improved to a point it went from okay to good. I still think this game is incredibly long-winded. It has long elements where it's like I would rather. It's instead of showing and telling, like it just shows and just like allows you to sit there and watch for like freaking 2 hours. Like my wife came in, she rarely comes in and freaking watches me play games, which is totally fine. I don't want to feel like she has to ever, but like, she came in and it was just like, oh man, for one, I was in the middle of like Johnny, like having sex with like a groupie or something. And that was already a fun conversation to have with my wife. But then like, like then it was like, it just kept going. Like he just kept talking. It was in the middle of like a mission where I was in the backstory of Johnny. And it was like, dude, she was like, is this game ever going to let you play it? I was like, look, man, I don't remember how long this went, but I didn't remember it going this freaking long. Like it was like, and there were multiple missions like that like just kept going and going and talking and talking and talking. And I'll get into that in the expansion a little bit, but it kind of has that problem too, where like this game is just like, no, I really just want to tell you about freaking everything. And I'll tell you for like freaking 15 minutes. And it's like, okay, like we could have just made this a freaking Netflix show and given you 15 hours, 15 episodes or whatever you needed. But like now I'm having to sit through this in a video game where I'd much rather honestly be playing it. Like, I don't know. It's could have been paced better, we'll say. Shooting feels a lot better. Driving feels a lot better. I mean, like these were noticeable improvements to me. But let's move on to the expansion. We'll come back. We'll circle back to it in just a second. But the expansion itself is a lot smaller, as it should be. It's an expansion. It takes place in Dogtown, so a tiny little part of the map that you couldn't enter. Is funny because people were finding every reason to make fun of Cyberpunk 2077 when it initially released, and they were like, I can't believe you can't even go to this part of the map. Like, unfinished. It's like, oh, well, it was it was meant to be an expansion. It's like, oh, okay. Makes sense. But anyway, Dogtown, which is owned and operated by a military general that was essentially rebelled and took over the town. You are contacted by another like cyber runner, net runner, who basically tells V, I can save you, buddy. I got the cure. You just got to go to Dogtown and do a little job for me. And he's like, okay, I'll go do that. And then the president gets shot down. And then the president's helicopter gets shot down, and V has to go rescue the president, which I was like, I didn't know freaking anything about the story of this expansion. I was like, there is no way that I am rescuing the president in Cyberpunk 2077. Like, that just feels a little ridiculous in my opinion. But yeah, that is essentially half the story of Phantom Liberty, is you rescuing the president and then being enlisted into the secret forces. And in doing so, you meet Idris Elba. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Another big name, obviously, who looks really quite good in this expansion. Looks just like him. Also very interesting that they were able to get so much star power for this game. Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba, they have very prominent roles, a lot of dialogue, and I'm assuming Idris Elba probably had signed on before the expansion was even made, and it was freaking a massive dumpster fire. But it is what it is. But you team up with him, and you essentially go through the expansion and try to find the cure and save the president and all that good stuff. It acts as really kind of like a half Call of Duty, half talking simulator. The campaign does. So you have a lot of really cool missions that are filled with a lot of really interesting set pieces where you're fighting a giant mech and running through in corridors and shooting people. And then you obviously have set pieces where you're in a casino and you're having a high stakes roulette game with some evil bad guys. And then kind of what you'd expect to see in literally a Call of Duty campaign, like I just played last year. But in this case, the other half of it is you talking with people. And that's kind of where I'm okay, the pacing again for this is a little off. I really wish we could have figured out a better way to not just force you down this rabbit hole of just talking with people. But it ends up with you essentially getting to know these characters and deciding their fates by the end of it. And, the decisions you make are very impactful and, lead to two different endings. And they're so different, so incredibly different, that I genuinely encourage you to save scum. Before you have to decide who you're siding with at the end of the campaign or the end of the expansion, I highly encourage you to save and then go back and do both of them. Because not only are they both cool and they're both interesting, but they both add information to the characters that you're siding with and playing throughout the campaign that are honestly very interesting and cool and really add a lot of color to these characters that you otherwise wouldn't have. So it's insane that they put so much production value behind this content that honestly a lot of players are just going to completely skip because they're well, I got my ending and that's all I needed. And most people aren't going to save scum in freaking Cyberpunk, so it's not something you're used to doing anyway. But they also have a completely new ending for the main campaign that you can unlock through this. It's also very lengthy and very worth your time if you're into that. It's kind of crazy how much they put into this expansion that you probably won't have any incentive to see. But I definitely encourage you to do that. But all the talking leads to you essentially getting to know these characters and dealing with the themes of loyalty and duty and how far should one's loyalty go for say a country or a president or the military or your friends or something like that. That is a really interesting theme to me and something that this game tries to explore in a lot of different and interesting ways. And I actually think that it's really cool. And while I wish that it was more well paced and I didn't have to listen to so much talking, I think it's done in a very intelligent way and a very fun way when it wants to. Overall, this is a very meaty expansion, densely packed. You're going to get easily 15 to 20 hours of new content out of this. You're even going to have some new side missions in there, a whole new kind of side mission, like getting vehicles and taking them back. I engaged in a lot of those. Eventually, if you complete all of them, you'll be able to decide who rules Dogtown at the end of it all, which is also another cool mission. I think, it's definitely worth your time. 100% worth your time if you liked the original Cyberpunk. If you want more Cyberpunk, I'm not going to say this is better than the main campaign, but it is dang close. It's really well done. It's really well done stuff here. Again, I think it's a little wonky in terms of pacing. I think it's a little out of whack there. But for what this is, I think it's definitely worth your time to go back to if you like the original game. I think if you don't like the original game, it's not worth going back to. I think if you don't like the core of what Cyberpunk is already, you won't like the core of what this is. Which, circling back to that main campaign, while I got back to it, came back to it, and, had finished the expansion and eventually finished up the game, I had essentially checked out. I ain't gonna lie. I think I got 60 hours out of this playthrough just mainlining the campaign and then doing everything pretty much in the expansion. I got 60 hours, which is way more than I thought. I thought it was going to take me maybe 20 hours to go through both of them. It was going to be 40, total. Not the case. There is a lot in the main campaign, and there is a lot in the expansion to do. And because of the pacing of the main story, of the expansion, because of how much talking there was, because of how drawn out it felt, I felt like I was ready to check out. All right. I was ready to go by the time the credits rolled. I was even I'll go back. I'll do all the endings again. I'll see all the extra content. And at one point I thought that, and then I did the ending, one ending, and it took 5 hours to do it. And I was I'm not doing this for 3 other endings, no shot. And I'm not going back and doing side content. It's just not going to happen. That being said, I think that the combat significantly improved. The skill tree significantly improved. I actually had fun playing the game this time. I feel I really couldn't say that at 1.0. I really felt mainlining the story, I felt I got way more out of it. I felt the world, because it's been so improved technically in so many ways, it's so much more immersive. And it doesn't feel everywhere you turn, it's oh, well, I can't even see what's on that screen because it's some technical glitch or some texture glitch, or NPCs are just kind of walking into walls or whatever that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That still freaking happens in this game. You will see an NPC walking into a wall, or you will have something glitch out and fly into the sky or something freaking like that. It is still there, okay? It is nowhere near as bad as it was when it first came out. This is Bethesda level glitches, right? And that's kind of where I eventually come to with this game, right? Is I think this game is now on the level of something of a Skyrim, okay? And I mean that in the best possible ways, and I mean that in the worst possible ways, okay? So Skyrim is a game that is known as a classic at this point, right? It's one of the, some people will tell you the best games of all time. Everybody loves that game. It's appealed to a very wide audience. I love Skyrim, right? I've played it multiple times. But it is impossible for you to sit here and tell me today, right now, that Skyrim is perfect, right? There's clearly technical issues with the game. The game is clearly doesn't have the best story in the world and the best quests in the world. We have clearly come far and beyond Skyrim at this point. But Skyrim does a really good job about letting you experience a fantasy and get immersed in a world. Whatever that Bethesda magic is, it exists. It is certainly there, and it has clearly hooked a lot of people on that game, myself included, right? But it's obvious that the parts that add up to that whole are not fantastic, right? There's issues. And I think we've obviously time has passed and we've surpassed Skyrim in like every way. There is a game that does something better than Skyrim. No matter where you look, you will find it. Cyberpunk 2077 is now that. There is like, can Cyberpunk be done better? Absolutely. Can you get this fantasy, this cyberpunk fantasy of living in a cyberpunk world anywhere else? Absolutely not. This is the only game that offers that, and it does it in a way that, yes, even though there are problems, the parts add up to a much better whole than what it really is, you know? I think if you are interested in something like a Skyrim, you should heavily, and you want something like that, but sci-fi, this is 100% the game for you. 110%. I think my original impression of this game was it was okay, right? When it initially came out, it was okay. The foundation of what that game is still here. And I think that the technical improvements and the gameplay improvements that have been made here make this game 100% absolutely better. No doubt in my mind. This is the first game in a line of sequels, right? The sequel for this game, I think, is going to blow people away. I think we have a foundation here now that is setting up something really and truly amazing, kind of like The Witcher. You know, we had a foundation set up by The Witchers 1 and 2 to then make Witcher 3 one of the best games ever made. I think we have the foundations now. Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red has kind of figured out how to do it. They figured out where to not stumble as much. They have that core foundation that now can be transplanted into a sequel and can be something really special. This game's updates made it go from okay to good for me. Not great, but good. I think on a sale, this game is certainly worth checking out. I think if you're interested in the idea of a cyberpunk world in a video game, this is definitely worth checking out. I think I really enjoyed my time sinking myself into this world. I wish I could have done it for real, like gone through all the side missions and really not tried to like speed my way through the campaign so that I could really immerse myself in this world. Because I think if you do that, this is, again, the only game that'll let you do that in a cyberpunk world, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And if you can still play something with fresh eyes, not with nostalgia, but with fresh eyes, like a Skyrim, you will really get a lot out of this game. So consider, I am not a cyberpunk defender. I think CD Projekt Red should hang for what they did. I don't think it's right. I think, I don't love the idea of a redemption arc. Like No Man's Sky, I will actively be like, why are you defending No Man's Sky? Like, stop defending No Man's Sky. They lied to you, directly to you. They lied, and you bought millions of copies were sold. And yeah, okay, they fixed it. They made it better. Congratulations. Like, I don't care. They did something horrifically malicious that took advantage of you. How can you sit here and be like, well, no, I like them now? It's like, well, I don't know. If one of my friends did something horrifically malicious to me, I would drop them. Like, I would be like, you're not my friend anymore. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. It's like, well, here's a present. I like you. You're my friend. It's like, no, well, you still have the capacity to do something horrific to me, and you did it. Like, I don't appreciate that. I would much prefer a developer just go on and make something else, and I can judge that based on what its quality is, rather than trying to erase the mistake they made and try to, like deflate the negative press that comes along with something like a No Man's Sky or a Cyberpunk. Now when you hear people talk about either one of those two, it's no longer like, hey, maybe you should be kind of wary about what CD Projekt Red does in the future. It's, oh no, like that game's great. I can't wait to see what they do next. It's like, we really shouldn't be talking like that. We should really still all be like, well, no, CD Projekt Red did something really messed up, and like we should really be kind of aware of that moving forward. So, it is what it is. I don't love the idea of a redemption arc. This game has certainly gotten better. I'm not here to defend that. I'm here to objectively critique that, and I still think the game has issues. But like I said, if you like what I've said about it so far, I think you'll get a lot out of it. But anyway, that is my long time coming second run through Cyberpunk 2077 with a really cool expansion. But yeah, I think that's all I got. And you know what? I've gone on for a long time. We got the Nintendo Switch 2 coming up, ladies and gentlemen. If you're hearing this, more than likely, I mean, it's about to happen. If not, it already has. You're living in the future where you know what the Switch 2 is going to be like. And if there's a 3D Mario platformer coming along with it, I think so. I think it's a likelihood, strong likelihood. But, that's going to be really cool. We'll see what I have to say about that in the future. My friends, I appreciate you listening through. If you're still with me, I have a little treat. I know that you heard the theme at the beginning. Very proud of it. Very happy. We sound like a legitimate enterprise now. Legitimate podcasting enterprise with a theme. Well, guess what? We also have an outro. We have an outro for you too. I like it too. I hope you do as well. And without further ado, I hope you have a good day, have a good week, have a good another week, and play some good video games, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.